Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, if you're running a small business, you have heard all the AI hype, for sure. But the real question is, how do you actually use it to make money? Well, today we're going to lay out a practical roadmap for you to take an AI idea from just a simple prototype all the way to actual profit. All right, let's just dive right in. We're going to walk through 5 key stages, okay? We'll kick things off by finding the right problem to solve. Then we'll figure out the right AI approach for that problem. Move on to building a prototype, and then, of course, the important part, measuring its financial impact. And finally, we'll talk about how to make sure what you build is built to last. First things first, the absolute biggest mistake that so many businesses make is they fall in love with a cool new AI tool before they've even nailed down a real, painful problem that needs fixing. Let's make sure we don't fall into that trap. This quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Your energy, your budget, your team's focus, it should all be laser focused on a specific business pain point, not just the latest shiny AI trend you saw on social media. Here's a really quick gut check for you. Just listen to the conversations happening around your office. If you're hearing more talk about vendors and software brands than you are about the actual workflow you're trying to improve, that is a massive red flag. It means you're starting from the wrong end of the problem, and you need to refocus right away. So here's a simple but really powerful little test. Can you name the single manual step that AI will completely eliminate the moment you switch it on? If you can't, your scope is way too broad. You've got to narrow your focus down to one workflow, one group of users, and one specific change that you can actually measure. Okay, so you've pinpointed the problem. Fantastic. Now, what's the right tool for the job? The next step is choosing the right kind of AI system to solve it. And trust me, this is not a one-size-fits-all decision. You basically have 2 main options here. Over on the left, we have workflows. You can think of these like a simple assembly line, perfect for predictable, repeatable tasks. Then on the right, you have agents. Now, these are more dynamic. They can reason, they can plan, and they can figure out their own steps to solve more complex problems. It's that classic trade-off, right? Workflows are cheaper and faster, but agents are way more powerful and also a bit more expensive. A really great example of a more sophisticated workflow is something called the orchestrator workers pattern. Just imagine a central orchestrator AI that acts like a project manager. It takes a big, complex job, say like coding a project or doing research from a bunch of different sources, and it breaks it into smaller pieces, hands them off to specialized worker AIs, and then puts it all together for the final result. Pretty cool. But, and this is a big but, here's a word of caution. Be really careful with those simple workflow tools. What starts out as a nice, clean 3-step process can very quickly turn into a tangled, unmanageable mess of custom code and confusing logic. And maybe more importantly, they're rigid. They just can't understand the nuance of human language, which makes them a terrible, terrible choice for anything like conversational customer support. All right, now we get to the really fun part. How do you actually build and deploy your first AI prototype without needing, a venture capital level budget? Let's get practical. Okay, check out this timeline. The big thing to notice here is that it's not a giant, scary, big bang launch. It's a phased, methodical process. You plan, you set up, you run a small pilot with a trusted group to get some feedback, and only then do you roll it out to everyone. The key takeaway here is you can start seeing real benefits within 3 to 6 months, not years. And you know what? The costs are way more accessible than most people think. We are not talking about 6-figure investments just to get started. Simple, really high-impact projects like an automated chatbot or an email classifier can start in the low thousands of dollars. The strategy here is actually really simple. Just be smart about where you start. Don't try to automate your most complex, mission-critical process right out of the gate. No. Instead, begin with a project that solves an immediate, painful problem in a low-risk area. This builds momentum, it proves the value of AI, and it makes it so much easier to get buy-in for those bigger projects down the road. So, you've built your prototype, it's up and running, and it feels like it's working. But how do you actually know if it's making you money? Let's break down how to measure the real return on your investment. It's actually a pretty straightforward 4-step process. First, add up all your costs, software, training, the whole shebang. Second, you gotta measure the financial gains, time saved, errors reduced, customers you didn't lose. Third, you do the simple math, benefits minus costs divided by costs.
And finally, and this is so key, you have to keep monitoring it. This is not a one-and-done calculation.
And the results? Well, they can be genuinely transformative. I mean, according to Forbes, a full 60% of small businesses using AI report saving significant time and money. So this isn't just some hypothetical benefit. For a lot of companies, it's quickly becoming a competitive necessity. Let's look at a real-world example because these always help. So a small digital marketing agency invested $18,000 in AI tools, and the result? They saved over 50 hours of manual work every single month. Now, that didn't just cut their costs. It freed them up to scale their business and take on more clients without any drop in quality. That's a huge win. Okay, finally, let's talk about the long game. Because to really ensure success, especially as AI starts handling more critical stuff like finance or compliance, you have to build systems that are reliable, auditable, and just fundamentally trustworthy. This quote from Lietvin just perfectly captures the danger here. See, most of the AI that you interact with every day is what's called probabilistic. You ask it the same question 3 times, you might get 3 different answers. Now, for creative brainstorming, that's awesome, that's a feature. But for an accounting audit, it is, as they put it, an absolute nightmare. This brings us to a really critical distinction. On one side, you've got that creative, probabilistic AI. But on the other, you have deterministic systems, which are bound by fixed mathematical rules. For your business, this isn't just some technical jargon. It's the difference between having a creative assistant and having a foolproof bookkeeper. The same input has to always produce the exact same output, no exceptions. So the breakthrough idea here is a design pattern that actually separates these 2 roles. You let a creative, probabilistic AI act as the architect. It can understand your request in plain English and design a solution. But then a totally separate, rigid, deterministic builder engine is the one that actually executes that solution, following the rules with perfect precision every time. This whole approach gives us 3 really crucial lessons for building AI you can actually count on. First, how you structure your data, your foundation, matters way more than which fancy model you use. Second, putting smart limits on what the AI is allowed to do is often more powerful than just giving it endless capabilities. And third, that whole separation of the creative architect from the rigid builder, that is everything. So, as we wrap this up, I want you to ask yourself this. Is the AI you're thinking about building a focused tool that's going to solve a real problem and generate provable value? Or is it just another buzzword? Your answer to that question will determine whether AI becomes your quiet advantage or just a very expensive distraction.